So let me get this straight. I'm the substitute for the nosh and the coffee. My goodness, look around the room. 1,800 activists gathering here to stand in one clarion powerful voice against hatred. I want to thank the ADL for its 105 years of leadership in fighting anti-Semitism and racism and xenophobia and all other kinds of poisonous, corrosive hatreds. 105 years. And I want you to know, I don't go to a foreign country to represent the United States without first consulting with the ADL and several other great Jewish organizations. But this is the address, because when it comes to fighting anti-Semitism, ADL has done it longer and does it as well as anybody else. And so Esther Gordon-Epstein, our chair, thank you, Esther, for your leadership. And CEO Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you for your leadership. And of course, I have to give a special mention to Cliff Schechter, my AE Pi brother. Appreciate everything you do for the ADL as well. My friends, I was appointed 9 months ago by President Trump and Secretary Pompeo to lead America's fight against this ancient, relentless, indefatigable hatred that is anti-Semitism. Only a few weeks ago, I arrived in Halle, Germany, to visit the site of the Yom Kippur synagogue attack. The date of my arrival in Halle was not accidental. I chose October 27th. The day I arrived in Halle was the one-year anniversary of the murders at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life Synagogue and the 6-month anniversary of the murder at Chabad of Poway, San Diego. I wanted to arrive at Halle on that date to make very clear that the challenges we are confronting is not only a German problem or a European problem. It is a global problem, a global sickness that requires nothing other than a focused, coordinated global solution. What is going on, we might ask, when we see Jews attacked on the streets, the internet boiling over with anti-Semitic hatred, vandalism of Jewish property not only in Europe but in Brooklyn and in Los Angeles? What is going on? The sources of this contamination are three. And it is very important to remember that they are three sources, each of which requires our attention and our focused opposition. The ethnic supremacist far right, the Israel-hating radical left, and militant Islam. Now think about that. Far right, far left, and militant Islam. These are three groups that should hate each other more than they hate anything else on earth. And yet they're united by their hatred of the Jewish people. And I would argue as well united by one other thing, which is their fundamental incompatibility with the values that have made this country and so many other progressive democracies great. So the far right is the anti-Semitism of Halle and Pittsburgh and Poway, of far-right fringe political parties in Europe that too often gain acceptance, and of course of vile, despicable internet chat rooms. The anti-Semitism of militant Islam is very important to remember, is the chief source of violence against Jews in Western Europe. The overwhelming majority of serious violence against Western European Jews on the continent is radical Islam. And finally, the far left. These are the anti-Semites that dress their Jew hatred in the fig leaf of anti-Zionism. It's often called the new anti-Semitism, but there's nothing new about it. It's the same old medieval primitive hatred, the blood libels, the delegitimization, the economic boycott. It's all the same, just repackaged and rebranded, focused on the Jew among the country instead of the Jew in the community. And so let me tell you what we're doing about it. Because let me tell you, my friends, although there is a lot of bad news and we have every right to focus on the bad news, there is a lot of good news. A lot of good news. Under the leadership of this administration, we are working with our friends and allies around the world to institute real measures to fight this contagion. Let me give you some examples. In the EU, not a friendly place often for Israel and Zionism, there is an anti-Semitism coordinator who is absolutely fantastic, Katharina von Schnurbein. who is leading the EU to stand up against anti-Semitism. In France, where things have been so difficult for Jews, now in France, at every single police academy in the country and every single prosecutors and judges academy in the country, every single candidate will be trained on anti-Semitism, the investigation of hate crimes, and the prosecution of hate crimes. In Germany, there's not only a federal anti-Semitism coordinator, but in an incredible statement, Germany has federalized its fight against anti-Semitism. 16 states in Germany each have their own anti-Semitism coordinator, so that where the rubber meets the road at the state level, where law enforcement policy is made and educational policy is made, there's an anti-Semitism coordinator ensuring that Germany opposes anti-Semitism in all its forms. In the UK, where an anti-Semitic cabal has taken over the Labour Party, and I want to thank Joan Ryan. Joan Ryan is a hero and a leader who stood up against the Labour Party in a moment of incredible bravery. I want to thank you, Joan. There is currently a civil war in the Labour Party today, as more and more Labour MPs, including Joan, are standing up and saying, we won't stand for this. And finally, at the UN. That's right. I wanted to end with the UN. Not a place you would think there's good news for us. There was a report just issued by Ahmed Shahid, the Special Rapporteur on Racism. So phenomenal, so thorough, and so fair that when I read the report, I had to flip back to page 1 to make sure I was reading the right document. It's from the UN, folks, and it's really good. And so this is what we're doing. And I have to tell you that there is a lot of good news. But I want to end by what we need from you. Because the bottom line is, this isn't just a report that I'm giving you today. I'm here for a reason. And that is to appeal to you, you 1,800 activists who are here because of your passion for this cause. What we need from you is unity. This is not a fight where we can inject partisan differences. Do we have partisan differences? Of course we do. That's okay. We can disagree on all kinds of things. But when it comes to fighting for the safety of the Jewish people, when it comes to fighting for our children and grandchildren that they may, God willing, inherit a world better than ours, when it comes to fighting to ensure that we fulfill our promise to the next generation that looks upon us with trust and love, that we will protect them, when it comes to that, we cannot disagree on anything. When it comes to the safety of the Jewish people, we must stand together. That's the very least we can do. And just like I called people out when they said President Obama can do no right, I called them out. When President Obama did good things, I said we have to say thank you, Mr. President. So too now. This is not a time to put partisanship above the fight for the Jewish people. All of us must stand together. It is said that the Jewish people at the foot of Mount Sinai exhibited the greatest moment of unity in history. And that was, in fact, the prerequisite of receiving the Torah. It is said the Jewish people stood, ish echad belev echad, one body with one beating heart, at the foot of Mount Sinai. That is the unity we need today. No less than that is what we need to fight this scourge that only 75 years after the end of the extermination of the Jewish people in Europe is rearing its ugly head again in unvarnished and unapologetic venom. Nothing less than that level of unity is what we need today. And so, my friends, I appeal to you that now, in this moment of challenge, we stand shoulder to shoulder and arm in arm, in one voice, and yes, with one beating heart, to say that we will fight this, we will win this battle, and we will make for our children and grandchildren tikkun olam b'malchut Shaddai, build for them that better future that they so desperately deserve. Thank you so much. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you to ADL for all that you do.